Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Power Driven Podcast. Today, I think we're going to have kind of an interesting discussion. We're going to talk about some of our favorite trucks, some of the builds we've done, some of the things we've learned, things we like, things we didn't like, and experiences of the different builds we've done. So I'm excited today. I think I'm excited to hear what these guys have learned and what we can learn from these guys. And so I guess I'll start quickly. The build I'm going to kind of focus on today is going to be my tow truck. I talk about it a lot in the podcast. You've probably heard me talk about it. Ruby, my 06 Mega Cab with Common Rail. And that's been a pretty fun build for me over the years. I've learned a lot already by the time I got there, but this is new to me because this is my first Common Rail truck.
So what year do you think your diesel journey began, so to speak, and how far in your diesel experience is Ruby? Your 2006 Dodge. I would guess
I bought my 98 and it was probably 2006. So right around third gens were already out. So I got a 98. And so by the time I got Ruby, I had already built multiple triple turbo trucks, big power stuff. And the Common Rails had come a long way and I hadn't been part of it. And so I'm like, this is like obviously some pretty awesome technology. And while I do love 12 valves and P pumps, I really do, don't get me wrong. It's pretty hard to not see what the Common Rails were doing and think, man, that's pretty dang sweet. I want to get part of this. So I got the Mega Cab because I kind of wanted to learn that platform, the Common Rail platform. And there's some real amazing things you get with the Common Rail platform. This is why Meyer always gives a hard time about 12 valves.
Jump ship.
Meyer jump ship. That's right. And so I got that. That's the reason I got that truck in the first place, is to just kind of learn the Common Rail stuff. And so I'll talk more about how it came along. But the first thing I did with that truck is literally I tuned it EFI Live Tune. I bought a book.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, there's a little book on tuning it. It's how to tune Duramax. It's like,
for people that don't know, EFI Live Tuning, that's just a tuning software that opens up the engine computer to you, the tuning table, so that you can modify it.
Yeah, and there's MM3 for the older Cummins models, but mine was an 06. It's kind of like the best of the ECMs, has the most power. You can make the most power with it. It's kind of like the desirable ECM, which is why I went for the 06. And so I started playing with EFI Live, and I kind of read
and this
some
was
books.
An automatic transmission truck,
yep,
right?
Yep, automatic quad Mega Cab, which is cool because I have kids and I want a lot of space. And the Mega Cabs are awesome. They're huge.
And you're a tall man, so you need to put that front seat way back.
I can ride the low rider seat. Yeah, it's awesome.
And the person behind you isn't even crowded.
Yeah, it really is amazing. It is a wonderful truck. The Mega Cab is a wonderful truck. For those who've never had one, they're awesome. But so I started playing the EFI Live Tuning and quickly learned it's not as scary as people thought it was, but there's a lot of stuff you can really screw up. So you need to be pretty thorough, but it wasn't as scary as I had thought it might be. And that might be because I've done a lot of tuning on 12 valves, which is very simple, honestly, compared to as far as that. But that's kind of the where I started in Common Rail stuff. What build do you guys want to talk about today?
My first build was my 99 24 valve Dodge, but my favorite one to talk about is the 1995 Junker drag truck, my first 12 valve.
You can ask this man any question about diesels, and somehow it will relate back to the Junker days. Back in the Junker, it did this. So I think this completely different situation will act like this.
The Junker really rears its head everywhere.
It's like a backbone of all diesel learning.
And the main reason I got the Junker was I was trying to drag race my 98 5-speed manual 24 valve. Or 99, sorry, not 98. It was a 99. I was trying to drag race it, and I hurt the clutch my first time at the track, and I had to drive to work the next day. And I had to deal with that. You had to start it in gear with your foot on the clutch because you could not shift it into gear from neutral because the clutch was dragging and warped so hard. And so I learned early on, it's like you can't race your daily transportation. You need it, You need reliable transportation if you have a real job. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. What about you? What are you going to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about the Shorty. That's like
the build that never ends.
That's like the build that never ends, and it's definitely where I learned a lot.
What is the Shorty?
So the Shorty it's a 95 regular cab short bed, Dodge Ram 2500. When I got it, it had a 12 valve, threw some fuel at it, made like 550 horse. It was a blast.
Now, Shorty is special because you could not buy a single cab short bed Dodge from the factory. Yep. So somebody had to chop
Yeah, there's one of two ways of doing it. You can either put Cummins stuff into a 1500, which did come in that configuration, or you can shorten a regular cab long bed and throw a short bed on it. So you have to like chop the frame, weld, and that's what the Shorty is. It's a chopped frame, and it was a 2500, and they just shortened the long bed to a short bed.
And that was a 2-wheel drive truck, correct?
Sure was.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I noticed it's snowing today in Utah, and you're not afraid anymore.
No, and ironically, I drove a coworker's 2-wheel drive truck, so here we go. I'm just a real bright guy.
But it did. So fast forward. Well, I'll let you get to it. But it started as a 2-wheel drive, 12 valve.
It changed a lot.
So what was your first What'd you do to this thing?
So the very first thing was, I got it with a bad pump. So I put a pump on it that was built and, rack plug, all that stuff. And we threw some massive injectors at it because they were like the biggest ones we could find. Like we sold bigger, but we couldn't find any them because we were in the middle of moving shops. So I got 5x20s.
Nice.
Not the 22s. That was a terrible decision. And then we threw the Junker's old 364 on there, and that was fine. And then we did some turbo testing.
It's like a Borg Warner SXE turbo.
Yep. S364, 64 millimeter inlet, and it was a 73 outlet. So 73 turbine. And that was fine. And then we did some testing.
Was that with like a T3 wastegated housing and stuff?
I don't know what it was. I don't remember. I think it was an 80 T3 wastegated housing. Then we did a 362 swap on it for testing, and like that charger was way more fun. And that's how it lived. That made about 550 horse, about 24 degrees of timing, and it was a blast. It was a great time. And that's how it lived for about 6 months.
That's like the longest it's ever been in any one stage.
That's not true, actually. It's been longer in the next stage, but
yeah, that's true. So yeah, so my first thing, like I said, I got EFLF tuning, and I put on a Borg 362.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the first turbos I put on.
So back to your 2006 Dodge Ram 2500 mega cab.
Yep.
So you did tuning first, and then what?
I did a Borg 362, which is a drop-in turbo, drop-in-ish. It's mostly drop-in, and we sold it here. And I wanted to try that out on the mid cab, and it ran really good. The problem I found is I really had my mind stuck in the tuning of 12 valves. And I thought when I'm cruising, if I want good fuel mileage, I need like 16 to 18 degrees of timing to get good fuel mileage in this common rail. And I did that, and it ran fine, but everywhere I was running, it was hazy. It was just always so hazy. I was like, what is up with these stupid trucks, man? Why doesn't my 12 didn't do this? And I'd tow, and the module wasn't stupendous. And it's never been very good in that truck, honestly. But it just was always dirty, and Meyer probably made fun of me for it.
You're probably because you commanded 12 valve pressures. You need over 4,000.
Yeah. But I mean, so I figured out enough. So I was making good power. I mean, it's probably 500-600 horsepower with this turbo on there.
Had you done a trans at that point, or did you?
I probably had at this point. Obviously, I mean, I'm sure we did trans. We did. I think it's had so many transmissions and trying different things along the way. And you sabotaging me, giving me was it a saltwater transmission?
Saltwater transmission. Not only was it a 47, but it looked like it got pulled out of the bottom of the ocean.
So story. We sold a transmission to a customer in Texas, and a hurricane came through Houston, and it was on the floor in his shop ready to be installed. And this saltwater, the seawater, he was close enough, like by the bay there, that it actually got saltwater in the trans. And so he shipped it back and said, "Hey, I haven't even installed this yet. Can you fix it?" Well, we went in there. The saltwater had rust pitted the billet input shaft, the transmission pump.
It's like everything, the drums, like everything was like, looked like it came off the bottom of the ocean.
But we had all these like new parts. I couldn't throw them away. So I was like, I know, we'll put them in Todd's transmission.
so we'll be Miss. I mean, honestly, it lasted probably pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, I drove around for probably years like that. But when it came out,
it was longer than that because I was refreshing it once it was in like that well over 1,000 horsepower range. I was refreshing it. And I was like, "Do you still want this crusty crap in there?" He's like, "Oh my gosh, get that out of there." I was like, "It looks kind of rough."
Yeah, so I ran that crap for a long time. Thanks, Will. We're not.
But it was good data. We needed to know how far will a saltwater pitted billet input shaft and drum.
Such valuable data. The reason it happens is because somebody needed a 48 trans. We sold it, and we didn't have a core, so Will stole mine. And he's like, "I can put a 47 back in Todd's." That's what happened. So
it was basically free.
Yeah, there you go. So trans is in there and holding enough power for what I'm doing. And it was good for, I mean, gosh, I was in that 362 for a long time.
Did you have head studs at that point? Did you put some head studs in there probably?
No. not at that point in time. And
So you're
then
at 600 with like factory head bolts
Yeah.
and Todd tuning.
yeah, and somehow this is long enough ago. I don't remember, something happened to that motor and we had to take it out. Do you remember why?
That was a reman engine when you got
Yeah,
it. Wasn't
yeah.
there like an oversized piston or a
Something was-
ring
Something was
broke
wrong
or
with
something?
it. Yeah, something was wrong with it. We ended up pulling it out. And then this is before King of Streets. Or this was before King of Streets, wasn't
Oh,
it?
Yeah.
dude, that's a whole nother engine build.
Yeah.
Then you had that 5.9 in there, and there was some reason I think you wanted to go for power, and maybe we were testing something. I don't remember what it was, but like some reason you pulled it out, and it was a broken ring. It broke a ring.
Yes.
That's what it was. And so yeah, we built a 6.7,
Yeah.
or
And
you
so-
built a 6.7.
So I built a 6.7 and then the fun started happening. And so
Now, for the guys that don't know, you can just put a 6.7 long block in that model of truck. What do you have to do to control the 6.7 that you can't do the 5.9 engine?
So I'm actually back up a little bit there. You put our towing compounds on your truck,
Yes.
and then you made like 900 horse,
right.
and then you cracked your ring.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. So those towing compounds are pretty stout. Like
Yeah, they're a good running setup.
yeah, right. And they
And
did
that was
tow
still
amazing.
with factory powdered metal rods.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's so surprising. I mean, it took it pretty good. Just a cracked ring with that.
Yeah.
We kind of knew we were on borrowed time. But so yeah, we did that, and then we pulled it out. So then it's engine time for me. But we'll get onto that in a minute. I want to hear more about the Shorty a little bit.
So I had the 362, made 500 horse, and it was a blast. I mean, picture giving, I'm not a very mature person. It's basically the same as giving a teenager a regular cab short bed, full manual valve body truck, and like letting him loose on the streets of Cedar City. It was a blast. But I knew I wanted to up my game. Josh was out there making like 1,000, 1,200 with his 05. And the whole reason I bought the truck is because he kept breaking stuff in his 05. Like that was so long ago. We were all learning so much. And so I attribute it to the fact that he was trying to make 1,000 horsepower, this crazy number with this land yacht. I'm like, if I can do it with a 2-wheel drive regular cab short bed, like I have the best chance of making 1,000 horsepower, just streetable and driving and fun and whatever. So I knew I wanted to like push it further. And I was trying to decide like, would I be happy with 700-800 horsepower on a 12 valve? Because I knew I could make that super streetable. Or would I want to be able to win dyno competitions and try to shoot for, that 1,000 horsepower number that I thought it would take to get there? So I was like, well, I'm just going to common rail swap it because then I know I can make that 1,000. I know I can make it streetable and it'll be really fun. So that's what I did. Is I bought Josh's old motor out of his race truck, refreshed it, and just did some stuff. And yeah, it was a 14 mil bottom end. Hamilton 180.
That means the main studs were
Main
drilled
studs.
out to accept a 14 millimeter main stud.
Factory common rails 12 mil, factory 12 valve. The early 12 valves are 14 mil. So you just drill and tap the common rail block to accept a 14 mil head stud. And then I had a 188-220 cam. It had just a hand ported head that was like right in the beginning when we were getting good at that stuff. It had 625.
Did it go on the flow bench or was that just your best guess?
That was before the flow bench.
Before we didn't have flow bench.
I just like did a little grindy, and I mean it flowed pretty terribly. Once we had a flow bench, we tested it again, and I was like, that was.
Do you remember what it flowed when you went
like
back?
185 or something on the intake,
And it's a 6.7.
It was a 5.9 head.
So it started like 160
Yeah.
to 165,
Wasn't great.
170. So you picked up like 10 CFM.
Yeah, I really thought I had like the crap. I was like, dude, I'm making real power with this thing. I must have done a really good job on that head. Nope. Anyway, but it had 625 head studs.
Our stage 1 tow head flows substantially more than your hand job.
Oh, I'm
there.
aware. Thanks. But yeah, so it was like valve springs, just like the kind of the works for that stuff, but push rods, all that stuff. But that's what I put in it, and we had to common rail swap it, and we actually
You put good rods right away. You put the Street Fighter
Fighters.
rods.
Yep. First set of Street Fighters I ever bought, we were able to get Josh like bought a couple sets, and we were able to get like a bulk discount kind of thing. So I was able to afford those. I was really excited about that. Now I can have a real motor with real rods in there. And then we were trying to get ready for the Gauntlet Challenge, where like Josh was trying to take his truck, you guys are trying to take the Godfather, whatever.
The Gauntlet, we're talking the ATS dyno shootout.
Yep, it's a dyno competition, whatever, and multiple of us were trying to get there, and we were trying to get like all the trucks ready, and my truck was still a 12 valve the week prior to this event, and I was like, Josh, I was like, I don't want to do this if I'm going to sacrifice your guys' trucks to get there. And he's like, no, we're good. And he's like, the rest I can do, he can do himself. He doesn't need me for. I was like, okay, cool. So the weekend before the event, we pulled it in the shop on Saturday with a 12 valve running engine and we pulled it out of the shop, and I drove it home Monday with a common rail. And so, I mean, there's just all the pedals, all the lift pumps, all that stuff you had to do. We got all done, and yeah, no, it was great.
You have to do the pedal because a
Yeah,
12
it's common rail
valve
pedal. Yeah,
a 12 valve has a throttle cable and a common rail has
plug it in with a connector. Yeah, it's electrical.
throttle by wire.
So we had to mount that up. We had to do because I have vacuum boost brakes, but there's no vacuum pump on a common rail, so you have to go hydro boost brakes. There's a good, like, once you pull the engine and you start stuffing things in, you're like, oh crap, there's more I got to figure out here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was fun.
And it ran really. It was a good running truck. I mean, for a long time, that first time I drove that thing with the common, I was like, well, once you had the compounds in, I was like, geez, this is a death trap. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, that was another thing too. I had to fab up compounds because it was a single turbo when it came in, and I took your compounds from the junker, those old tractor turbos you had there. It was a great running setup, actually.
It really was. It was amazing. And you're now back to your 95, the junker. You have got this. You want reliability. You can't drive your street truck anymore.
And I was just fresh out of college working my first post-college job in the construction management industry. And I was married. My wife was like a florist at the Albertsons. So, we were big ballers, we were dual income. We were probably knocking down 60,000 a year between the two of us. And I wanted to race, and because there's a drag strip in Las Vegas, and I was like, that was so much fun with my daily driver. So I found the cheapest 12 valve I could find. It was clear down in Tucson, Arizona. And I believe I paid $1,700 for the junker drag truck.
And that's counting the fuel to go get it. Because every time you told me that, I was like, I thought that for a while. And then you told me that was that included the fuel to go get it.
Yeah, because I think
the actual cost of the truck
was $1,500. Yeah. It's $200 in fuel. So, and I borrowed a trailer because I didn't own a trailer. I mean, I was poor, Anyway, and I drove down to Tucson, Arizona, and bought this truck. And I started it. It ran. It was ratty and ugly, just very similar to what you see today. It was gushing transmission fluid out of the front because either the cooler was cracked or the line had a hole in it or something. So when you started, it was just pouring transmission fluid out. And I took it on a little test drive there, and it wouldn't go above third gear, but it moved first, second, third. And so I knew I was going to have to do something with the transmission right away. And the frame was a little twisted, and the bed was full of asphalt and paint, like a painting contractor had it and an asphalt contractor had it, and it had been jumped off road. It was
the cross member was like bent.
It was wild,
destroyed.
But I brought it home, and I was so happy. It's like the happiest day ever. And brought it home, put it in my garage, and it's kind of like, I don't want to relate this too much, but like in the gas world, there's everybody does everything with like modern fuel injection and HP tuners or Holley, and then they learn about a carburetor, an old muscle car, and they're like, it'd be kind of fun to play with that. Well, I was a 24 valve VP guy. I'd made 500 horse at that point, 499, but what's 1 horsepower, friends. And so I hadn't quite gotten to 500, and I was just like, man, it'd be really fun to put these 12 valves. The parts are cheaper. Everybody says you can add all this power with just a screwdriver. And so I was intrigued. I wanted a 12 valve. So I brought it home. The first mod that I did to that, I had to fix the transmission right away. So first thing I did was I had to pull the transmission out because there's no overdrive. And at that time, a race transmission was about $7,000. And I wanted to build like a race truck, and I didn't have $7,000. So I went on eBay and I bought a rebuild kit for $120 because that's how cheap you could buy a transmission rebuild kit. And I downloaded a free manual online, some pirated manual somewhere, and printed it out and put it in my own little 3-ring binder because I wasn't about to buy a transmission manual. It was too expensive. And I didn't have a lift. I didn't have a tranny jack. I bought... so Harbor Freight and I became close friends at that point in my career because that's the cheapest place to get a jack and to get tools. And basically I pulled the transmission out and took it apart and figured out how to put it back together and figured out what was burned up in it. And there was a bunch of, damaged clutches. I think the overdrive lip seal was destroyed. That's why it wouldn't go in overdrive. And the overdrive clutches were burned, but it couldn't make pressure in overdrive. And so I got all back together and got it running decent. And first thing I did, went to Las Vegas Motor Speedway, totally stock, no performance mods. Ran down the track, and I believe it ran. I think it was either a 19.7 or a 17.9. I can't remember. And the forum that I posted all that's gone now, so I can't even reference. But basically, it was very, very slow, and that was the junker. But very quickly, it progressed.
Yeah, I remember back that forum you talked about Comp D. You put all the stuff you did to that truck. It's like that is an encyclopedia gone. Too bad about Comp D because there was so much information you put out there, pictures, the stuff. I remember following your build. This is before I even knew you. Following the junker build and what he did do it and the different things he's trying. It's pretty fun.
But it was like I didn't have a dyno, and so posting the drag strip time, you could calculate the horsepower, and it was so fun to see where it started. And I do some mods, and the next weekend it'd be track night, and I'd go there and run it. But I mean, back then you could drag race on Friday night. I think it was $15 to race. I mean,
awesome.
I mean, yeah. What else can you do on Friday night for $15? You know,
nothing that fun. Yeah. So you started racing a lot and doing all that stuff, and you started playing. I mean, when did you break the head? You broke all the ears off the head one time you talked about. I remember that.
I mean, my first power mods is I went in there and I pulled the fuel plate out and I advanced the timing and I ran, and I want to say with the fuel plate and the timing bumped, we were somewhere in that like 16-second range, maybe even like 15.9. I mean, we shaved, 2, 3, 4 seconds off the quarter mile. And then I was like, man, I need more fuel. Found some used 215 pump injectors on eBay for $60. And that was my first figuring out injectors. I bought used stock injectors from a higher horsepower model off eBay and put them in my truck. And I think I bought some delivery valves from somewhere. I think I bought actual DDP delivery valves back then because everybody's like, I don't think you could buy delivery valves on eBay back then. And they were supposedly the best. And so I bought, he called them like 042 delivery valves, but they're very similar to like a power driven 025 right now.
Yeah.
And then once I got injectors and stuff in there, I had that thing running like 13.7. I mean, we'd shaved a bunch of time off it. It was really hard to consistently do that because I'd just do burnouts. Like I had no traction. And so once I got to the high 13s, it was traction battle. But I mean, that's like stock injectors, delivery valves.
Ran good.
Started having trouble with fuel pressure. So back then, everybody put like a Holly Blue pusher pump
I remember that.
to push their stock pump. Like it's like instead of compound turbos, you had compound lift pumps. Well, I had compound lift pumps, and it got out of control. Pretty soon, I had 3 lift pumps on there, like a Walbro 392 electric pump, which is a gas pump, but they still worked on diesels. And I was force feeding the front of the pump with that, and more timing. And then I blew a head gasket, and then, I mean, valve springs. I mean, it's so long ago. I mean, guys, this is like, I graduated college in 2008. This is 2009 when I bought this truck. I mean, we're talking
15 years ago.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long, long time ago. But that's where I got started the 12 houses. And it was so fun because every week I'd do more and more. Or every 2 weeks, whenever the track was open, I'd go back and you could get instant feedback on what the mods did. And the fuel pressure picked up power. And the traction helped. Everybody would be like, dude, you don't know nothing about drag racing, but if you're trapping 112 miles an hour and you're running 13s, there's something wrong with your 60-foot time. And I'm like, oh, trap speed. That's a cool word I can use to sound like a racer.
Nice.
But
learn the vocabulary.
But I think the funnest part, honestly, there was like a car culture at the track. I'd go there and these people would be so blown away at how fast that ratty truck was. And you beat a Corvette. Dude, these guys lose their mind. I mean, they're talking, they want to kill you dang near. I mean, middle finger, swerve at you. They'll go home. They do one run and you lose and they like leave the track, and all these buddies would be like, dude, I made $500 off that race. What an idiot, And so, yeah, a bunch of my friends, I don't know if they're really my friends or if they just made money gambling on me racing without me knowing about it. But it was a lot of, I mean, I remember beating like there was some Mercedes that had this like V12, because this is Vegas. I mean, there's nice cars. I remember beating this like AMG something with like a V12 engine in the sky, and it was turboed and everything. And that's when it was like running like high 11s, and he had like a 12.3 car, and I'd watched him run once. I was like, hey, you want to line up? And he's like, sure, you know, and I see all these people betting on the sides, you know. And yeah.
Good times.
And so it began.
There, yes. And
the
habit was born.
Maybe that's why I like ugly trucks, is because
that's so much satisfaction.
You love the
just
sleeper.
gapping people.
Yes. That is definitely Will Terry to the T. I mean, beating up on fancy stuff with cheap stuff. That's like your love of your life. It's your thing. But with Ruby, kind of at this, we're kind of back to my truck now. We had done an engine, and I was running that. Towing compounds was fine. And then Josh competed in the King of Streets, King of the Streets. And he did that year before, and he said I should come back and run with him. And so he kind of convinced me to do that. And so we decided to do a full build. Like kind of like.
This is when it was it in Ohio there?
Yeah. It wasn't so far away like it is now. It was in Ohio. And so we decided to do another full engine build, a little bit more, kind of more like you're talking about. We did the 14 mil top and bottom. I mean, head studs 14 millimeters, main studs 14 millimeters.
You wanted a little more piston to wall clearance, I think.
A little more piston to wall. We ran the narrow bowl piston still because we like that. The piston seemed to last longer.
And it was a 6.7 now.
Yep, 6.7. And at this point, we're still kind of early in our common rail head development. But I do think you actually made me a good head to run on this truck. And we had a flow bench. I don't know if we had offered them at this point in time to the public, but we were definitely like in the R&D phase of getting common rail. So I had a pretty good head on there. And I still wanted this to be a very street-friendly truck. So I put on a wild compound turbo system that was just, it worked too good. It was crazy. I did, basically it was like our Aggressor 62, 67, but it was a 67, 67. So it was a 67 millimeter inducer with that large turbine wheel.
On the compressor wheel. And then
the 76 by 67 turbine wheel, 10 blade. And I paired that with a 106 millimeter GT55 that I had left over from a blown up Godfather. I'd blown up the Godfather again by this time. And so I had a 106 liter, and I'm like, yeah, let's just go ahead and throw that on there. So I did it. I built that, and I did the standard mount for the 351, that low and back, you know, down low. And I mounted the 106 up high. And it actually worked really well. I did run an external gate because I was very concerned that I'd be running way too much volume through that 351. So with the external gate, and we did at King of Streets, it did 1,400 horsepower, but on our dyno it was 1,200 horsepower.
Yeah. I don't know if it actually ever hit 1,200. I think it was like 1,195.
Yeah, high 11s.
But yeah, right there.
Which was pretty rowdy because that thing made torque like now. I mean, obviously.
You can imagine. Yeah.
A 6.7 ported ahead with that little tiny turbo on the manifold. And so I ran that, and I drove it. I guess we did tow it to King of Streets, and I competed out there, and it did really well until we had a transmission issue because we had a cracked transmission case.
No, yeah, we went through the transmission like right before the event and put a reman pump in there, and the reman pump was bad, so it wasn't making enough pressure on the line to hold the band. So it was asking the sprag to do everything, and since it had like the sprag mods, you secure it to the case, it ripped the back of the case out.
Yeah, and
so we were trying to like figure out where to get a case from on whatever night that was, Friday night, to be able to, build a new transmission and put it all back in.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun time. That was a fun event, though. I mean, the drag racing, the sled pulling was fun.
Did you hit like 1,200 or something on the dyno there?
We're not down on 1,400.
Oh, because it was a little higher. So about 12 on ours.
Yeah, and I felt kind of bad because I feel like I brought a truck out just to have fun. I wasn't coming out like to dominate or win. But Josh's like, dude, if you just do well, like you'd be surprised how well you can do this competition because there's so many events. And it's one of the higher. I mean, I wasn't like, Chris Patterson there. That's when he hit 3,000 for the first time. Josh hit over 2,000. So there were some bigger hitters there. My 1,400 was like no slouch. I was definitely in the upper levels of that thing. And there's some really nice trucks there. And I was like, man, that I beat in the dyno. I was like, geez, I wasn't like planning on that. I just kind of brought this truck out here that we built kind of quick, and it did really well. I mean, I put it in a very low level tune because I was in a drag racing class that I had to like not go under the cert, which I had no cert, I had no cage. So what is that? Like
770 8th mile. Yeah. 770.
735. So I put in a very low tune and quickly went like 6.6 or 6.7. So I'm like, oh, geez. So I went and got a bunch of sandbags. Like, well, every 100 pounds will drop a tenth, and it didn't make a difference. Still went too fast. But
I
anyway.
remember hearing some drama about that because I think the people that are out there helping you were like, why don't you turn the power down?
Bagging himself.
it's like turn the power down. Don't add weight and make the truck less reliable.
And I don't think you completely blew away your cert. I don't remember what it was, but your logic was I was just barely too fast. So if I just put 100 pounds in there, it's more reliable than clicking it down a tune because you had I think you had broke out and then you broke out again.
But less.
And you're like, oh, dang, I was like so close. Like if I just put 100 pounds in here, like that will do it.
Yeah.
And that was fine until you broke, which, I mean, does 100 pounds of sand really matter on a 7,800 pound truck? Probably not, but it was enough to piss me off.
But then you found out the cause was the sprag, not the weight.
Oh, it was the pump. Yeah, not making the pressure, which we didn't have a line pressure gauge on that point. So we like routed the interstage boost pressure over to the transmission and just put the wrong sensor on it. We knew like, okay, the sensor is 3 times bigger than it should be. So whatever the interstage boost is showing, it should be 3 times of that. And we're like, oh yeah, this pressure pump's not making pressure. We got to figure it out. And so, yeah.
So in the day, it was a fun trip, and engine was fine. Just we got it home and fixed the transmission, and then I kind of did that for a while. Left that turbo set on there, and the engine was working great. And then I decided I wanted to upgrade the manifold charger. I thought while it's been fun, it's a stupid set. It's not stupid. I mean, it actually works really good.
It just made so much boost while towing. Like it had coolant temp issues. Exactly.
I needed to drop the boost at all times. It always had, because that big engine pushing that little turbo, I always had boost.
Because you're kind of like choking up that 6.7 with that HE351, and there's a GT55 feeding it. So there's a lot of boost and exhaust energy coming out that has to go through that little turbine wheel. And just a lot. So
at this point I decided it's time to upgrade the turbos to kind of what I have now. Mm-hmm. And that's why I kind of took that off and I redid it with a 467. And I ran it with no gate. I said, I'm just going to run it straight, simple, and see how it works. A 4C7 back into this.
Now, why didn't you want a wastegate on there?
Well, wastegates, when you do external wastegates, there's potential for the pipes to crack. There's more exhaust leaks. You got to maintain your external wastegate so it doesn't leak or it doesn't function properly. There's a lot of
sometimes they kind of sit up or something and they won't start smooth.
And I thought if I didn't need it, it's just one less thing I have to maintain, think about. And while I do believe if I had one on there, it would make a little bit more peak power. It runs really, really good. So I'm pretty satisfied with what it is.
So you'd actually recommend if somebody's building a street truck dedicated, if you can figure out a way to build it without wastegates, it's probably more reliable and definitely easier to maintain.
If you're going to run nitrous, just that goes out the window. You're going to need wastegates if you're going to run nitrous. But if you're going fuel only, you could probably design the turbos pretty well to make that work.
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of a double-edged sword. I think if you have a 5.9, they don't spool chargers as well. To where you're going to want a turbine or a turbine housing that's tight enough that you probably should run a gate or at least an internal gate. If you have a 6.7, you can get away with a S400 and it drives really good. And S400 turbines, they can swallow some exhaust.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of get away with it without that.
Yeah. And so that worked.
What if you're like halfway between a 5.9 and a 6.7 and you have an S400 turbine? Would you recommend a gate or no?
I know you're asking for your pile. I don't know. I don't care.
It all depends.
I'm honestly curious. I bet your setup, dude, problem is 12 valves don't want to make power up top that much. So you're probably out of steam by the time the gate would really help you. I don't know. I bet you'd pick up a little bit, but it's probably not worth it.
It has a gate to atmosphere right now.
Well, have you dined with it to see how it does?
No.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying.
That would require me to like bolt it to the dyno and dyno it. I mean, that's a lot of work.
So you just said something interesting. It's an interesting thought. You said 12 valves don't make power up top.
Okay, easy there. I know you're freaking Godfather can.
No, I just think it's interesting because we just very recently learned from your truck, like they probably do better than most people realize, and they're just governing out. And people think, I got 5Ks in here. They just make power up top. You had 5Ks in your Uncle Rico.
And that was the Junker's old injection pump that I used to drag race, extensively. And I thought, it has 5K governor springs built by a reputable pump shop back before we built pumps, before power driven was even a business. That's when I got that pump. And my truck would always make peak power around 3,500. And I changed displacement and I was doing all this testing. I'm like, man, I want to see if it 5.9 will rev higher because mathematically it should, and it didn't. Well, guess what? My pump was defueling at 3,500, just slow, but that's why it was losing power there.
And so I do wonder, like, you have to be pretty radical in your P pump in order to get fuel above 3,500. Well, and people just don't. Or in common rail, like you can see, I got my pulse width cubed. It's still feeling hard at 3,500, 3,800. Because I remember in my common rail, I was like, when I was early EFI live tuning, like, I can't believe how well this pulls power the whole time. It's always making power RPM. And I mean, I actually kind of do believe now. I always thought at that point, well, it's because I can adjust timing. I'm running timing up high. But he had plenty of timing to run up there, and it still fell on its face until he figured out the stupid.
In fact, more than 35 degrees of timing did not add power on the truck. It made peak power at 35. And I'm like, why does Todd need 40 plus degrees to make peak power with this big, 13, 14 mil pump, 16 mil?
Yeah.
And basically, I've done a whole bunch of testing that's going to get thrown away because now that I figure out my pump was defueling, I don't know where my truck makes peak power. I know it picked up a bunch of mile per hour of the track with Governor Springs.
And it's kind of
TDD Governor Springs.
Your truck was hard because you've always been, it's a 12 mil pump. And so you're making 1,500 on it, 1,500 on it. So like you wouldn't expect more than that from it. And it's clean. When it's under power, it is pretty much squeaky clean.
Not anymore.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But it's not like it was like dirty and it got clean where it's like, oh yeah, no duh, you're defueling. Well, so like it was very hard to notice that it was actually defueling until we hooked up a lambda sensor and we're like, oh, it's getting lean. Why would it get lean?
But it was slowly getting lean, and I was like, oh, the turbos must just be fully spooling on the top end, where Todd's truck would get slightly rich as you went up in RPM, which you would expect if the head is no longer flowing more CFM,
right,
and your boost isn't rising. The
fuel hasn't stopped,
and the fuel hasn't slowed down. If the efficiency curve of the engine drops off faster than the efficiency curve of the injection pump, theoretically you would get richer as RPM goes up, not leaner like I was.
Yeah. So once we discovered that, you changed it. All of a sudden, you picked up all kinds of power, all kinds of speed, all kinds of top end power. So
I mean, it's mathing like 200 horsepower average now, better at the drag strip.
Yeah.
I'm like,
what the?
Like I used to have to spray nitrous to go faster than like 115. I think I went
120.
120 on fuel.
Yeah. You picked up a huge amount. So anyway,
8 mile.
I just think like for on the street, most common rails do run power higher up in the RPM, and it does feel that way. But I do wonder if a lot of that is just the a side effect of the defuel. People don't even realize I got 4Ks in here. If you got 4K Governor Springs, you're not getting full fuel to 4,000 RPM. No way. 5,000
and most of the way those are marketed and sold to people, you can rev up to 4,000, and a lot of people will free rev. And if they have timing, it'll rev to 4,000. Well, guess what? You don't need full fueling at 4,000 to rev to 4. You need about 10% of what the pumps can do to go there. So they
anyway,
start pulling earlier.
I digress. Back to your 12 hours. No, it just was interesting to me because I do think like they actually are not as bad as I even thought. Because my hot rod pumps have always been great, top end, top power. And I just thought it was because they're huge and the injection rate was awesome, which it is. But I mean, I don't know if that's the whole story.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're talking about. But
I was like sitting here thinking, I can't remember what we were talking about. We were having a conversation. You had to interject.
Sorry. I just can't let you hate on the 12 valves all the time.
I don't remember.
I mean, then we'll talk about my favorite truck, the Junker. Let's talk about my first engine build.
All right, let's do it.
So I'm in my little garage in Las Vegas, and I'm running 11s, and I can't keep the head gasket on my truck. And so after I blew it with the factory head bolts that I had retorqued because I was cheap, I went and bought some ARP 2000, those black oxide studs, and put it in there. And it only made like 2 drag strip runs, and it blew the head gasket again. And I was like, what the heck? I even O-ringed this. I used the Isky Groove-O-Matic in frame, and I cut O-ring grooves in my block. It's O-ring now, and it's still not holding. Well, that's back early before I knew about, copious hot retorques, and you can torque a little higher than the factory spec on studs. But regardless, that old used head gasket sealed better with no O-ring or anything. That 287,000 mile head gasket was sealed up better than a new one that, was still kind of crushing. So eventually I had, scuffed the bores really bad because I'd gotten really hot because I'd done a few burnout contests. And I mean, like any normal person would. And so I decided I need to do an engine build. So I pull the engine out, and I'm cheap. And so I see you usually make power with bigger piston bowls because I'm researching every weekend. It's not just that. I'm researching to see what I can learn, and bigger piston bowls make more power. So these non-intercooled first generation Cummins, they have a wide piston bowl, but they still have a high 17.5 to 1 compression ratio. And I'm smart enough to know compression ratio makes power. So we want to keep compression ratio. It spools turbos faster, and the wide bowl also makes power. So I bought some used first gen pistons once again off eBay. I think I paid $80 for the set of 6 of them, and cleaned them up, and had this little Harbor Freight tiny lathe, and I had to like modify it to even fit these pistons in there and clear my cutters and stuff. But I cut them. I opened the bowls even bigger. And then I cut a chamfer at the top because most performance pistons have a big chamfer at the top of the piston. And I was like, man, I'm going to save some weight. So I took those piston pins out and I cut them on that little crappy lathe. And that's really hard metal. Like it's probably a week's worth of work.
Oh my.
Jeez.
Just cutting my piston pins to save a few grams. I mean, just stupid things that, it's what you do when you have more time than money. And put it together, got that engine all together, and I built some compounds for it, HE351, put a big turbine wheel in there. And I went to Bakersfield, California, the last NHRDA race they ever did in California. And I got there and I finally got some real slicks, used ones off Craigslist, of course, and some steel 15 by 10 inch wide wheels, 8 lug wheels, like from like a rock crawler guy there in Vegas. I think I paid like $50 for those wheels and $75 for the slicks.
Away we go.
Got them mounted at the Hispanic tire shop, for $5 cash. That's where you save money. And I went to the regular tire store and they wanted like $50 to mount. I'm like, screw that.
Nice.
The guy that was next to my shop, he's like, $5? I'll mount them for you. No balance. I'm like, don't want them balanced. I want weights thrown off. Anyway, got my tires all mounted and I went there and I ran a 1087, broke into the 10s, and I was trying to run a 1090 index. And I'm like, dude, I've like hit peak
Nirvana. I'm in Nirvana.
And I don't even remember how I did at that race, but I remember I ran more than one 10-second pass. I think I ran a 1091, a 1087, and a 1089. I probably had a horrible reaction time and probably didn't win. I don't know. I don't know if NHRDA has records from back then, but if they do, we could look up and see where I placed at that event. But I remember that was the first event that a common rail ran like low 9s. I think he set the record for Super Street, ran like a 930. And it was a stock engine with a single GT55 and nitrous.
Was that Paul Pierce? Was that who did that?
What was his name?
Pierce. The blue truck, right?
Yeah, I can't remember what his name was, though. Oh, yeah. He was hanging around with Ryan Milliken for a while. He was out of Texas at the time.
Yeah, I remember that truck. That was a cool truck.
But anyway, that guy, I can't remember his name, but I was just like blown away. Like, whoa, 930 or 927 or whatever it was. It was like unheard of. And everybody's like, what is this? He's like, yeah, it's a factory 05 engine with head studs. And they're like, no. And he's like, single and spray, baby. They're like, there's no cam. No. I mean, it was a factory engine with good head studs.
Oh my gosh.
Big single and nitrous. And
I feel like that's name.
So
yeah.
But anyway, we whatever. So that was big deal, But basically, first engine build, all in the garage, all there. I mean, I just dingleberry honed it. I didn't.
Yeah.
It might even been a 3-stone hone, but I didn't send the block to machine shop or anything. I mean, it was just
really quickly.
It was just really quick honed. About that time, Hamilton came on board and ended up sending me a head. I can't remember if I went to a Hamilton head right then or not, but either that or it was my home ported one. I didn't put that Hamilton head on until we were here at Power Driven, huh?
Yeah.
So that was my home ported head.
Kind of like
knowing what I know now, it was probably flowing a whopping like 150 CFM, up about 10 over stock.
Yeah.
It's probably like, earth shattering.
Yeah, it was back in the day. But let's get back to Shorty. You're
Oh gosh.
I want to hear more about this. This is really the kind of fun vehicle.
Yeah, no, it's always been a blast. So we left off saying that we were trying to make it to that dyno event. And so I drove it home Monday, and keep in mind, all I had experience with at this point was my 700 horsepower 12 valve was extended cab, heavy manual transmission, heaviest truck. And I had my 550 horsepower 12 valve in the Shorty, and I just put a common rail in it. It had 260% overs, dual pumps. Like I was like
260% overs.
I was like,
oh my gosh.
I was like, I know.
And by dual pumps, you're talking dual CP3,
Dual
so
CP3s.
high pressure injection pumps.
And I had those compounds that you had made 1100 on. I was like, okay, perfect. Like I need about 1,000 to win this dyno event, and I should have everything it takes to get there, like fuel, air, all that stuff. And so I take it for a rip, and I'm like, okay, this thing feels awesome. I took it for, I was like, dude, this thing is wild. Like this is so much fun. However, it's not what I think 1,000 horsepower should feel like. And so it was, I rip it and I get home, I get to the shop and after work, whatever. And Josh, I give Josh data logs and I'm like, hey, like, I don't feel like I'm hitting commanded fuel, this new fancy fuel injection. Like give me a P pump. Like I'm sure I could get a P pump to give me full fuel. This, whatever common rail crap is not doing it for me. But I give him a data log. He sends it to the guy that's doing the tuning, and he's like, "Dude, you are getting full fuel. Like it's commanding everything it's got. Like you have another problem. Like there's something wrong." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I was like, "Okay, maybe this is all it's capable of. Maybe that's all I have. Like a dual pumps is good for about 1,000. Maybe it really is 1,000." So we throw it on the dyno. This is like 3 a.m. And the dyno's never logged out. Well, we were logged out of the dyno, and it's 3 a.m. No one's awake. We couldn't get a code, and we're like, screw this thing. Like, we'll just run it unloaded. Just use the roller as a set of bearings, and just be able, we can watch fuel pressure and stuff, make sure that's fine and everything. So Josh was holding the mechanical gauge, and I floor it, and that was the first time I experienced a rev limiter. I thought I broke something. I was like, oh my gosh, what was that? He's like, it's fine. It's just a rev limiter. Just like keep going. And so like because we're like, it's unloaded, so we just floored it in first and went through the gears as he watches the fuel pressure gauge. We had fuel pressure. I was like, okay, the best thing we can figure is it's dropping rail pressure, so we've got a bad CP3. I was like, okay, well, I got one CP3 from Josh as a core for $50. We're like, maybe that one's bad. No idea. So we swap in a different CP3, and this is the day of the event. After work, we have to leave like that morning or whatever it was. We have to leave like in hours. So I swapped a CP3 in the parking lot, and I took Rowdy.
Because there's no room in the shop, obviously.
Yeah, everything else. Gosh, the Godfather was being worked on, all those trucks being worked on. And so I was like, I swapped it in the parking lot, and I had taken Rowdy with me. I was like, okay, like I kind of knew what boost I needed to make in order to, to make that power. Cause again, I didn't have time on the dyno. The Godfather was there, so I couldn't, just use the dyno. And so I had Rowdy with me. And so I swapped the CP3, grabbed Rowdy again. I was like, okay, read off those boost numbers. And I'm like in fourth gear trying to keep it straight. And Rowdy's just like 41, 42. I'm like, dude, you are a legend. Like, I'm not that good of a driver. Like,
you should not be here with me right now.
You should not be this chill right now. No, he's a freaking legend. And that was interstage. And yeah, it was making like 41,
so this
42.
is like Rowdy software team.
Yep,
and CAD designer Rowdy.
Yep. And he's a legend, and he read him off. I'm like, okay, that like scratching for traction in fourth. I'm like, that's kind of like what I feel like 1,000 horse would feel like. And so literally just drove it into the parking lot, pulled it on the trailer, like, and we hit the road. Like that was like a 30-minute time frame between those two things. And so we hit the road, got to the gauntlet, and I was waiting in line to dyno. And Tyler Kipp was there, and he was dynoing his small compound truck as well. And
now, little backstory on Tyler Kipp. He works in industrial injection.
Yeah, great guy.
He used to compete with a junker. He had a truck he called the budget beater, where I had the junker drag truck. And so it was kind of like this back and forth. And he had Cummins swap. But anyway, so he's a high up at industrial.
Yeah, he knows a lot.
He knows a lot.
Yep.
A lot of resources.
Very
anyway.
Capable. But yeah, he came and looked at the truck, and I was like, yeah, we just common rail swap this thing. He's like, tell me about it. And so I was like, tell him the turbos, whatever. He's like, what are you hoping to make? I was like, dude, I'd love to make like a 900. Like, that'd be cool. And he's like, no, he's like, it's not going to make that. And I was like, what do you think? And he's like, 750. And I'm like, really? Like, dude, I know what 700 horsepower feels like in a heavier truck. Like, I think it's making more than that. He's like, nah, 750. He's like, what? He asked like more about the turbos. And every time I told him anything about like the tractor turbos or anything, he's like, no, 750, maybe. And he's like, finally, he was like, what gear ratio in the axle? And I was like, it's 410s. And he's like, oh yeah, 100%, 750. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Like now I'm not feeling great about myself. I go up on the dyno, Elmer running the dyno. He's like, hey, like, what do you think this thing's going to make? And I was like, dude, I'd love 900, but realistically like 750.
You guys got hold on before you like this truck is so ridiculously fast. Like, I mean, it's funny that because your experience, you just said no. If I had been that truck, like, no, this is nowhere near 750.
I'm like, I had no idea. I'm just like, maybe I don't know.
Kip had gotten in your head.
He got in my head. Yeah.
We have footage from that event. Kip was a little intoxicated
Oh,
at that time too. No, he really was. So.
He was. But anyway, so we go
So he
up
might
on the
not have
roller.
been thinking clearly on his 700 gas.
Yeah.
I mean, but it had a lot of like questionable stuff in there, like just 2 stock pumps, whatever, like the tractor turbos, like it had a lot of stuff.
260% over injectors,
Yeah, definitely overfueled. But anyway,
So you load it up on the dyno.
Load up on the dyno. He asked me how much it's going to make, because then you know how to strap it down, and like how excessive to be with the straps. And I don't know why I was like, I had used Boost as like a reference to how much it should make on the dyno, and I not experienced. This is my second time ever on a dyno, on the Northwest Dyno Circuit dyno. And so I was like really nervous, and I wasn't sure how I was going to get to spool. Like I wasn't sure about anything. And so I finally, he's like, okay, go. And I floor it and it goes through the window. And I swear, I don't know what was wrong, but I swear I only saw like 40 pounds of boost or whatever on the gauge, which should be making like 60 or more. And I'm like, dang it, dude, I like messed up. I don't know what's wrong, whatever. And he's like, Elmer's like, okay, you made 1,061. I was like, thanks, Elmer. Like, what did it actually make though? And he's like, no, it made 1,061. I was like, yes. And I the window's already open, but like stuck my head out the window and told Tyler Kip to suck it. It was great. Yep.
Oh, yeah. I remember driving that around town. I was like, dude, this thing is crazy.
And it's evolved a lot since then, but that was the first. I mean, like say I drove it to work with the Cummins on Monday, and we headed out of town on Friday, working through issues. Like it made 1,000 horsepower. I guess it made 1,000 horsepower or 1,000 horsepower capable like 30 minutes before it went on the trailer. I really didn't know what it was about to do. And yeah, it was fun. It was a blast. And that was like,
did you end up winning the class?
I'm pretty sure I did win. Yes. I don't remember losing it, I guess. So, and Tyler Kip with his 1,000 horsepower tow truck made 800. Apparently forgot to put it in the big tune, but either way.
Yeah, that'll happen.
It was great.
Yeah, those are good times. So coming back to Ruby a little bit, you're talking about your 260% over injectors. When I did the bigger turbos, I decided I want more fuel. So I had 150% overs when I went to King of Streets and did those. It was like high 1,100 horsepower setup. And I thought, if I'm doing the 467, let's go ahead and put some more fuel in it. Because when the turbos were lit, that thing was as clean as anything. You wouldn't even know it. It's super clean. So do some more fuel at it, threw the 467 at it, and then we decided I wanted a 10-second tow truck. I actually did a video on this. I said, I want to have this be a 10-second tow truck. It's fun to say to me. It's fun to say. And so we put the 200%.
It's got a jingle to it, or a little rhyme, 10-second tow truck. I like it.
The 10-second tow truck. And so we went to, we put the 200% in there. And we didn't have a wild tune in it. There's only 1,500 microseconds was the tune we took to the track. And we ended up running a 10.78 second quarter mile pass in that thing. I got booted from the track because I have no cage, which you should. And so I was like, dude, we made it. And so it wasn't until after that we actually dynoed it. Like we had done the turbos and we had done the fuel, and we had never even dynoed it after the turbos, after the fuel.
So you had those injectors. So it was the same injectors and same tune that we had like written for those injectors with the smaller turbos. And then we just swapped turbos, and we're like, wow, it's like clean. It's clean. It's cool. Like we have more air now. Like I wonder what it makes.
Yeah. And so it went down like, wow, it's making great power, man. It's awesome. So we went back to the dyno, like maybe the next day or the next week, pretty soon thereafter. And it did right at 1,100. We're like, what?
Yep.
And these big turbos and 1078.
So for people wanting to know, if you have a 2006 Mega Cab, it takes 1,100 horsepower to run about a 1087, 1,100 to the tire.
Yep. 1078.
1078, not 87.
Give that 0.09.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1,100. So I'm like, that's not going to do. So 1,500 microseconds really isn't very radical. And it felt radical in the street. Like it was fast. I'm like, there's more. So that night we started like playing with tuning, adding more and more timing, more and more pulse width. And we ended up at 2,200 microseconds, a little more timing, and we ended up a little over 1,500 horsepower. So we picked up over 400 horsepower that dyno session, and it's never been back to the track since. Because we were 1,100, 11 to 15. I mean, we took a bunch of power.
Which, little side quest here, but he went out with Ruby and he ran a 1078.
Yep.
That was the same event. Was first time I ever gone with Scrat. Like I had this race truck I've been working on forever. Took it out there, and it was like second or third time, I guess, probably that I went to the Vegas drag strip and working through quirks and everything else. And I had a bunch of failed runs. I was working through issues. I don't remember exactly what the issues were, but you were almost faster than my fastest pass. And I was like, you know what? Good. At least I beat him I beat him by a smidge with his tow truck.
Yeah, it ran really good.
Now, after you got to 1,500, you were street driving with that and playing with it. Is that when you broke the crankshaft?
Yes.
So we've never broken a factory crankshaft ever in any of our race trucks, right?
Nope. Only in the
never ever broken a crank, and then somehow you broke a crank
in that truck. Yes. And then now it's got another new engine again, 6.7, very similar to the last build. Little difference is I'm running total steel gapless rings, Colt cam, stage 4. Other than that, it's a pretty much identical build. And it runs
then
great.
I worked over the new head, right? So it's got the higher swirl.
Yeah. And so it just runs amazing. And then shortly after that, I broke the input shaft of the transmission, which is the fat input shaft, which is the first time we've actually snapped one of those. So so Ruby's quite the,
Yeah. It makes torque. It's heavy. It makes power.
And we even tried to tune the torque out a little bit. Like it's not like a max effort tune. We're trying to keep it away, but that 2,200 pulse tune, it does more than that. Now that shaft has been in and out many times, and we've been watching it slowly twist and twist and twist, and like we're just curious how long it's going to go.
I remember one of our trans builders coming. He's like, "Hey, Will, what do you think about this shaft?" And I was like, it's only one spline off on the twist. It's good. They don't usually break till about 2 splines off. 1 3/4. Well,
we got the 1 3/4 plus on that. So it broke the input shaft. So now it's got the 35 spline, and it's got a 6.7 crank, new crank, and engine, and it's running real good. So now that's kind of my tow truck again, and that's just been the evolution. So now that's when I talk about my 1,500 horsepower tow truck. That's how it got to be what it is. And there's things that about that are great and things that about are not so great with the tow truck. With how much power you need traction bars, and they clunk a lot. Like driving around the trucks, these big bars, I don't love. I wish you could figure something out better than that, because I need them, because the axle rep would be terrible without them. And that would be nice to have that. And I guess the most latest thing I've done to it is I've done a lower power tune. I was trying to get a tune where in third gear with the torque converter locked up, I could stomp on it and not blow the tires off, just right there on the edge of traction. So because in 4-wheel drive, it goes all over the road. You floor it in big power. It's all over the place. It's super scary, super fun. But 2-wheel drive, it just goes straight. It's easy. So I think that's probably around 750 horsepower. We should put on the dyno and see, because now I can have, foot to the floor. It's super fast still. And EGT like max is about 1,100 degrees on that tune. It's so fast. I'm like 130 miles an hour at 1,100 degrees. I'm like, geez Louise, this is ridiculous.
I mean, I've noticed that as you give joy rides or test rides, whatever you want to call it, to people in your truck, if you have enough power to just blow the tires off, it doesn't accelerate as hard. And to them, it's like, they don't feel the power sound as big. Yeah. When you turn the power down a little bit, where it actually hooks up, if you're in 2-wheel drive, that's when you start getting this like, gosh, this thing pulls hard. And you're just like, yeah, that's at like half throttle, or
about half power, honestly. Yeah.
Because it'll just spin. Now, if you put it in 4-wheel drive, then their mind is
blown.
And
they're like grabbing for stuff. Like, okay, slow down, stop.
I mean, that's probably one of my favorite pastimes. When a foreigner comes into town that knows us from Sweden or wherever, is just like, hey, you guys got any fast trucks?
Like, yeah, come here.
Oh yeah, we'll go do a couple launches. They're like, you drive this on the street
every day.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we're like, yep. This is legal? We're like, mostly.
Yeah. Well, we need to finish this up. Let's finish your guys' build. So you now have a new engine. You run 1080s. You've got the triple pump on there, lots of pressure, and the 160 pump still. And then you came power driven started, and you changed pumps, changed turbos, and the power went crazy.
So I get to power driven, and I have this Hamilton head to put on there, and I think the Hamilton head did go on before power driven, but anyway, we're here, and being around Todd, you start getting addicted to more and more horsepower, and you learn quickly that you can make more power. And the junker was running 1090 index, and I always wanted more power. And really what was hard is I'd go to these dyno events and I'd make 1050 to maybe barely scratch 1100 horsepower, and I'd get like third place in compounds. And I'm like, I want to shop.
Yeah.
Power driven diesel. How can I be losing to, Frank Davis or or whomever, and not taking away from these guys, but I'm like, we own a dyno. There's no excuse to lose at a dyno event in my mind. And so I was like, I need to just open my wallet and start putting some better parts. So I got rid of the tractor turbos and put a GT55 on there. And I had to put rods, I was doing all this before on factory rods. So I'd put good rods in there. And it evolved. We were testing products. I mean, I burned up one engine with trying to spool a 476 single and a couple other things. But eventually I got it where the junker was making 1,500 horsepower to the tire with a 12 mil pump. Had our Predator belt driven pump because all my janky triple electric pump setup wasn't keeping up. And I remember Josh and I went to a dyno event in Montana and went there and did the dirt drags and got kicked out of the dirt drags because I was breaking windshield with rocks with my scoops. And I was like, you know what? I need to take this to the drag strip. And then I got thinking about how scary it was when it had 1,100 horsepower and it'd go like 135 in the quarter. And these big floppy slicks. You're going 130 miles, 135, 134, and your rear end's drifting around at the finish line. It's like, it's scary. And I'm like, I started running numbers. I'm like, I don't want to take this down the drag strip with 1,500 horsepower. This is going to kill me. Like, this is too much. And I chickened out. I decided it needed to be back halved and better roll cage and stuff. And I'm just like, this thing is too ratty. Like, it's run its course.
It was rowdy. Like, I mean, some of the times you would take it to the 8th mile stuff where you weren't scared because the mile an hour was going to be there. And when that thing came on, I mean, you could hear it. It was so loud, that hood stack. I mean, at 1,500 horsepower, that thing was like, it was really awesome.
I mean, it had 115 millimeter GT55, feeding a 472 and SXE, so S400 on the manifold. And then it was a stroker. We figured out these 6.7 cranks and still running, those Molly Motorsports, those power pack pistons. Yep. And, anyway, and it was light enough that it really wasn't a problem. And then finally we got to a dyno event in St. George. We went down there and it was like Flogged Fuel Fest or whatever. I think it was made about 1440, I think, on that dyno at that altitude. And then there was dirt drags, and I was racing this this big block dragster that had nitrous. And I was running him down on the back half, but he could like out 60 foot me like crazy.
So light. He's such a lightweight vehicle.
And what I found out, which is totally different than drag racing, is the faster I could get it into overdrive in the sand, the faster it would go. So like normally at the drag strip, I launch in first gear at, let's say, like 8 pounds of boost is all I could really hook up, maybe 10. And then, feed in the power as quick as I could. And, and I grabbed second, third overdrive. Well, at the sand drags, what I found out is if I launched in second gear, because it's sand, I would launch as high as I could build before the light dropped. So 40, 50 pounds of boost in second gear. And then as soon as the tree dropped, and I'm already floored because I'm just getting as fast as I can go, I would hit lockup immediately as soon as the tree dropped. And so now I'm locking, and then I would ratchet into third as quick as I could get to the shift. So it's barely in second. And then I grab overdrive. Well, I finally figured out that, so I was pulling the engine back through the peak torque and I was hot lapping it, and I finally cracked the number one cylinder doing that. But I mean, it made like 7 runs that day.
It was pretty fun to watch. And
once it broke the block, I was like, all right, thank goodness I don't have to try to run this thing down the quarter mile and kill myself. And I pulled, the parts out, and the junker just sat for a while, and I ended up picking up a 4-wheel drive truck, and it sat for year and a half. Mm-hmm. And then finally
Meyer built it.
Today, but it was pretty winning truck. It won a lot of 1090 index, a lot of 1190 index in the quarter mile. it won quite a few little dyno. Like I won that dyno in Montana at 1,500. I got runner up at a couple dynos, but it just got to the point where it was too much. We built a milder engine, or Meyer did, and it's kind of made a few little rounds since then. Whenever my main race truck's broke, it's kind of like the backup, and it just does it, man.
It's great. I had the honor of racing it at a drag strip recently, and like hearing the legends of the junker drag truck and how like much of a death trap it is. Honestly, I didn't think it was that bad. I was like, this thing's awesome. It's like simple, it's reliable. Like you just don't worry about it. Like you're not like normally when you coast down, you can't really hear the engine. You're kind of just wondering, I wonder if it's missing. I wonder if it's, if it's even running still. Junker didn't care. Like I'm sure it was still running, and it was. Just idled it back to the pits and just waited and went again.
So we've all had. I broke a crank. You broke a cylinder. You also broke an engine in your truck, didn't you?
Yes. So, oh my gosh, I guess we'll try to zoom through this.
In the Shorty.
Yeah. Oh boy. I have. So the Shorty was great. Like it made 1,061. Did a little bit of playing. It made like low 1100s. But I wanted to I just wanted to like secure. Like that was like my small compound dyno truck. Like I wanted to make sure I would always win that class because I needed the fuel money for the way back. So I kept pushing it and playing with different things and put an intercooler in it, made more power, and then I put an interstage intercooler in it, and made a little bit more power, and just like a little bit. And I was able to get to like that 1,300 horsepower range with that set of compounds, those tractor turbos, and they worked really well. And then I was like, I like clean running trucks.
So it's like 200 more than the 12 valve ever got them to.
Yeah, like it was a good running setup. I would say the interstage cooling, it was great if you're trying to really push the limit of that set of turbos, but it definitely slowed down the spool of it on the street. It was nice because it would clean up 1,200 horse, no problem. So I could, on ramps, didn't matter where I was, I could put down 1,200 and not smoke out anyone. So that was really nice, but it definitely slowed down spool up a little bit. But anyway, what was really cool is that like I appreciate clean running trucks, not smoking out on the dyno. And so when I'd go to these dyno competitions, I'd put it in a lower tune just so I could just make a pull, make 1,200 and be squeaky clean. And I was like, that was my goal. And like, if I ever felt like I had to like really push it, I could click it up a tune if I needed to, but I never did. Like, I think to this day, it still holds the record just because of that little 351 interstage cooling and a tractor turbo on top. But anyway, so that was great. And then I ended up putting small compounds on the tow truck, and I was like, okay, well now I have 2 small compound trucks. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna put the Shorty in as a big single. Like, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. I want to do a GT55 because why not? You should be able to spool it. Like lots of people spool them. I wanted to give it my shot, and I struggled trying to spool that thing. And Todd was pissing me off because he could spool GT55 on a 12 valve, no problem. John Schrodt was in my ear telling me the same thing.
Like, what is your deal? It's common rails are supposed to be so awesome.
Which come to find out, that head flowed so little. Like that was a lot of the problem. And 5.9s struggle with GT55s, but either way,
5.9 common rails, do not 12 valves.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, so I tried that, and I was like, I put it on really quick at a dyno event for the dyno event, and I made some pathetic number and like 700 horse or 600 horse, and I wasn't going to win. But my small compound, or my small single turbo, I also put on at the same event. They were like, hey, like you can't run that in the small single class anymore. You have to put it in the big single class. And I'm like, it is a small single. You say 70 or smaller, and it is 70 or smaller. And well, I didn't want to. They're like, I was like, you know what? Like, not worth the fight. Like, sure, put me in the big single class. Well, that won the big single class, so we were good. But either way, I was like, okay, I'm going to put this thing on our dyno, and I'm going to get it to spool. So I sat there on the dyno and on our dyno, and I did a run, and I messed up where I downshifted the truck at like, call it 5,000 RPM. And well,
from overdrive to third.
And that, just over revved the thing and pulled the bottom of the pistons out. And this is the same truck, like the same engine that's been in my truck. Like say you give a teenager a truck that makes 1,000 horsepower now and let them loose. Like that's what happened. Like I would let people borrow it and be like, just, if you break it, write down what you did. I've been trying for the last 3 years. Like it was outrageous. And the only thing, I'd snapped 3 input shafts in it. And that was really my only issues I ever had with that stupid thing. Anyway, so pulled the bottom of the pistons out. I was like, okay, time to build a real motor for this thing, or another motor. But I decided to go 6.7. That way I could just play with that big single a little bit more. They spool so nice. It was nice. Blocks are stronger. So I went 6.7 with it. I hurried up and had to build it for another dyno event and got to that event, did win. And yeah, that's kind of where it sat for a while. Then, I mean,
So
you
didn't break the block. You just ripped the bottoms out of the pistons.
Well, when the bottoms of the pistons come out, the rods start like flopping around, and yeah, it chopped that block up pretty good.
You did window it.
Very well. Like I could see in it. Yeah. Like there was like,
It was a bit of a mess.
I stuck a camera up the hole in the side of the block and you could just see wrist pin, no piston, just wrist pin. Yeah, it was a mess, but yeah. And that's where it sat for a while. And that was fun. But the problem is, I mean, 6.7 now it's capable of making, 1,400 horsepower, no problem. And realistically in the Shorty being 2-wheel drive, it was only able to really hook up about like in overdrive, it could hook up about 1,100 of that. In any other gear, like it was really satisfying because you had the same exact amount of acceleration in first gear as fourth gear. So like in some trucks, whatever, you get into the high gears, you're like, this isn't as fun. You never had that sensation. It was always the same amount of fun, but like you wished it was more fun in first gear. And so trying to like race around and stuff, like you see someone at a stoplight, you're like, it kind of sucks because like I know if we would take this out the full quarter, I could gap that person next to me, but on the street, I probably can't because I'm not going to hook up that well. And so I kind of decided like I wanted to take it the next step. I wanted to make it 4-wheel drive. Now the problem with Shorties is like, in my opinion, Shorties need to be low in order to look good. Regular cab, short bed, it just makes the truck look taller even if it's the same height. And so I need to make it low, but I also want to make it 4-wheel drive. And so my solution to that problem was to buy a 2008 Duramax and take that frame, that 4-wheel drive frame, and I dropped the second gen body and bed on that frame with the 6.7, with the 48 RE. And that is now the Shorty. It's got a 467 GT55 compounds in it currently. Same setup as Todd, so it should be capable of like 1,500. And I'm still working through some of the quirks on it, like CVs and all those things, but so far
it is low. It is so low.
It is low and it is a blast.
So it's low and it's 4-wheel drive.
Yep.
It is the lowest 4-wheel drive I have ever seen. Like
it's
a diesel variety. It's so low.
Yep. I had to notch the rear of the frame to get this low. Like it's about 3 inches between tire and fender in the front with like 305, 50, 20 Nitos, and like 3.5 inches in the rear. So like definitely low, but what's nice about it is like if you do something like that with a Dodge, you can get almost that low, but then you'd have no suspension travel left.
Yep.
Solid front axle problems. It just the axle hits the oil pan. You can't even like notch the frame. It's an oil pan problem. With the Duramax, like you're able to do it and it still rides really good. It rides really nice. I've taken it around a little bit and it
more
is
plush than the Dodge.
It is
before.
a lot of fun.
And now that you have 4-wheel drive on the street, it's probably substantially faster.
I've done a couple rips with it. I took a coworker for a ride and he was white knuckled, and then I put it in 4-wheel drive. And I would say he had a little bit of fun. It was great. And you're like saying like, oh, if you blow off the tires in 4-wheel drive with a passenger, yeah, they will be reaching for something. It's been a lot of fun. I'm hoping that the whole goal with the truck from the very beginning is just to be an amazing street truck. And that's what I keep trying to push it towards.
So is the goal 5s on the street?
The goal, I don't know if I'm going to try to do
5 mile, too fast. Low
I don't know
6s?
if I have a goal with it just yet. I wouldn't mind doing.
I mean, at some of these like mid-grade no prep races, you will win with a low 6-second vehicle.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it'd be nice to have at least 5-second capable, maybe not necessarily on the street, like put some slick start and something on it, like do a Hail Mary pass at some point and just say it's capable of 5-second. But yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
It is a wild truck. I mean, for dang sure, it's super fun. So,
but yeah, and like burnouts everywhere, like hard limiter. I've never treated that truck well. Like back when it was bone stock, I felt so bad pulling a 12 valve out of it that was running. It felt wrong to like have this perfectly good engine that I was going to pull out. And so, I mean, I just rev limitered, like the oil light was on all the time. I never even checked to see if it was a sensor, if the gauge was wrong, like the oil pressure light. But like on the way to the shop, I like pegged the needle past the 4K into like the oil can on factory valve springs and push rods, and all of it. I was like, it just wouldn't die.
Didn't you perfect the reverse burnout with that truck
I
as
did.
well?
Yeah, I was told I couldn't do reverse burnouts with like a built transmission, and I figured out why, and I fixed that, and then I perfected the art of a reverse burnout. I had Caltrax, so they didn't work that great. Now that I have traction bars, I need to try again.
One more time. Awesome. So, well, I think that's kind of to wrap this episode up. And we've had a lot of fun talking about trucks. I mean, we could have spent an hour on each one of these very easily.
Oh gosh, yeah. You just like start
thinking about what you've done.
Yeah, when we started this, I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. Like, there's not even that much. I went from a 12 valve to a 5.9 common rail to a 6.7. Like, end of story. Thanks, guys. Then I start talking about it, I'm like, dang, it's gone a ways.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff goes in these builds, and this is like when I talk about like I tell people not to rush. Like, if your goal is 1,200 horsepower truck, you have a stock one, enjoy the build. Don't do it in one time. All of these builds are fun the whole time.
So don't pull out a 500 horsepower 12 valve and put a 1,061 horsepower common rail in it. Wouldn't recommend.
Well, you made it to 500 though. I mean,
Yeah,
the knowledge
stock.
The knowledge is gained on the journey. The journey's a lot of fun. I mean, there's frustration when stuff breaks, but at the same time, when you look back on it, the funnest part was trying different things, learning the successes when you win, the failures to make the successes more sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you
That's
always
what it's all
succeed,
about.
it's no fun anymore.
This is why we have so much fun.
Once in a while, like, it really just feels good.
pays off. So anyway, guys, I do hope you guys are having builds out there. I hope you're building, having a lot of fun. And of course, we'd love to help you any way we can. And I highly encourage you to go out there. If you haven't started one, get some, even if it's just a simple mod, a tune, AFC Live, whatever it is, get started and you'll get bitten by the bug. It's super fun. So anyway,
Thanks. We'll catch you guys next time.
See ya.